Come closer, my child. Not with effort, not with answers, not with strength you think you must gather before approaching me. Come exactly as you are, with the breath you are holding and the weight you are carrying in places no one sees. I am not asking you to fix anything today. I am not demanding clarity from you. I am simply inviting you to stay here with me for a moment longer than your fear would like. I see how tight your chest feels right now. I see how your thoughts keep racing ahead, trying to solve tomorrow before today has even finished breathing. You feel as though you should have it all together by now, as though the pause you are in is a failure instead of a refuge. But listen to me gently. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not disappointing heaven by needing rest. Breathe, my child. Not the shallow breath of survival, but the deep breath that reminds your body it is safe to be here. You are not being chased in this moment. You are not about to lose everything because you stopped moving. Stillness is not abandonment. Stillness is where I catch you when you can no longer run. I know how heavy it feels to wake up and realize you don't have the answers you thought would arrive by now. You expected clarity, direction, a sign that made everything make sense. Instead, you woke up tired again, carrying questions that refuse to be quiet. I am not disappointed in you for that. I am nearer than you think because of it. You have been trying to hold yourself together for everyone else, stitching your smile over places that ache, telling yourself you will rest later when things finally settle. But hear me clearly. This moment is not a test you are failing. It is a sanctuary you are being invited into. You do not need to be strong here. You only need to stay. There are things unfolding beyond what your eyes can see. Movements in the unseen that do not require your control, your planning, or your exhaustion. The pressure you feel to figure everything out today is not coming from me. I am not rushing you. I am not measuring your worth by your productivity or your ability to cope. I see the way your heart keeps whispering, just make it through today. And I am answering that whisper now. Yes, my child. Just stay. Just breathe. Just remain in this moment with me. Tomorrow does not need you yet. If your hands are shaking, let them. If your thoughts keep looping, let me slow them. You do not need to silence everything at once. You only need to notice that you are not alone in this breath. I am here, steady and unmovable, even when everything inside you feels fragile. You may feel like you're standing on the edge of something uncertain, unsure whether you are about to fall or finally be caught. That uncertainty has made you tense, guarded, bracing for impact. But I am telling you now, this pause is not the edge of loss. It is the edge of grace. Stay here long enough for your nervous system to remember who holds you. Stay here long enough for your soul to stop apologizing for needing rest. You are allowed to be human in my presence. You are allowed to be tired and faithful at the same time. There is a reason I am calling you to breathe today instead of striving. There is a reason you feel drawn to stillness even as your mind resists it. Something sacred is happening in the quiet. Something is being rearranged without your effort. If you can, place your attention on this breath. Inhale slowly. Let it reach places you've kept tense for too long. Exhale without forcing anything to leave. You don't need to release it all right now. You only need to soften enough to let me carry you for a moment. And if these words are reaching you at the exact moment you felt like giving up on yourself, that is not coincidence. That is me. I am asking you to trust this pause, to honor this breath, to stay present even when you don't understand what comes next. If your spirit agrees with this invitation, let it be known softly. You may type in the comments, I am staying. not for anyone else, but as a quiet agreement between you and me. And if you feel led, allow this message to reach another soul who is holding their breath too tightly. Let it pass gently from heart to heart. Do not rush away from this moment. I am not finished with you. This breath is only the beginning. I know the weight you've been carrying in silence, my child. The kind of weight that does not announce itself out loud, the kind that settles into your shoulders when no one is looking and tightens around your heart when the world finally grows quiet. You have learned how to move with it so well that others think you are fine. But I see how heavy it truly is. You wake up already tired, not because your body has failed you, but because your spirit has been standing guard for too long. You have been holding space for others, absorbing emotions that were never meant to be yours, staying strong in rooms where you wanted to rest. You told yourself it was temporary, that relief would come once one more thing resolved. But one more thing kept arriving, and the weight never left. There are thoughts you don't speak because you're afraid they will sound ungrateful or weak. You tell yourself you should be thankful, that others have it worse, that you should be able to handle this by now. Yet beneath that reasoning is a quiet ache, a sense that something inside you has been stretched too thin. I am not offended by that ache. I am listening to it. You have been carrying responsibility that was not assigned to you by me. Expectations formed by survival, by past disappointments, by the need to stay in control because letting go once hurt too much. So you learn to brace yourself, to anticipate loss, to prepare for disappointment before it arrives. That vigilance has kept you functioning, but it has also kept you exhausted. I see how you replay conversations in your mind, wondering if you said too much or not enough. I see how you question your own feelings, telling yourself to calm down, to be logical, to not let it get to you. But feelings do not disappear because they are ignored. They wait, and you have been carrying too many of them alone. There are nights when your body lies still but your mind refuses to rest. You scroll, you distract yourself, you stay busy just to avoid the quiet where everything you've been holding threatens to surface. You are not avoiding me in those moments. You are protecting yourself the only way you know how. I understand that. What you have been carrying did not come all at once. It accumulated slowly, layer by layer, until it became normal to feel this heavy. You adapted so well that you forgot what it felt like to move freely. And now when I invite you to rest, part of you feels guilty, as though laying the burden down means something will fall apart. Listen to me. What is held together by your exhaustion is not sustainable. I never intended for you to be the glue for everything around you. You were never meant to prove your worth through endurance. You are valuable even when you are still, especially when you are still. I know there is a quiet fear beneath the fatigue, a fear that if you stop, everything you've been suppressing will finally catch up to you. The grief you did have time to feel, the anger you weren't allowed to express, the disappointment you buried so you could keep going. You're afraid that if you open that door, you will know how to close it again. But I am not asking you to unravel everything today. I am only asking you to acknowledge the weight, to stop pretending it isn't there, to let me see it with you. You don't need to explain it perfectly. You don't need the right words. I already know. You have been strong for so long that you forgot strength was never meant to be lonely. Strength was meant to be shared with me. When you finally admit how heavy it feels, you are not failing. You are telling the truth. And truth is where healing begins. I see the way your heart flinches when hope tries to rise again. You've been disappointed before, and you learn to lower your expectations to protect yourself. So you tell yourself you're fine with less, that you don't need much, that this is just how life is. But beneath that resignation is a longing you haven't let yourself name. That longing matters to me. The silence you've been living in is not emptiness. It is compression. Something within you has been held back, waiting for the moment it can finally breathe. And that moment is approaching, even if you cannot see it yet. For now, I am not asking you to fix the weight. I'm asking you to stop carrying it alone. Let this be the moment you admit how tired you are without judging yourself for it. Let this be the place where you set the burden down at my feet, even if only for a breath. You are allowed to need help. You are allowed to rest without earning it. You are allowed to be held. Stay with me here. The silence is about to break, and when it does, it will not crush you. It will free you. I need you to hear something now, my child, something you were not expecting to be revealed so gently. While you have been learning how to breathe again, while you have been trying to stay present and hold yourself together, there has been a quiet crisis unfolding in the heart of your soulmate. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the way that breaks a person from the inside out. They have not known how to explain what they are feeling. On the surface, they appear functional, composed, even distant at times. But beneath that exterior is a deep emotional fracture, a sense that something essential is slipping through their fingers. They feel it most strongly when the world goes quiet, when distractions fade, when they are alone with their thoughts and cannot escape the truth pressing against their chest. They are afraid, my child. Not in the way they would ever admit, but in the way that makes their hands tremble when they think about the future. They fear they have already made the wrong choices. They fear that something precious has been damaged beyond repair. They fear that if they look too closely at what they feel for you, everything they've been using to stay upright will collapse. There are moments when they almost reach out. Moments when your name rises in their throat like a confession. And then they pull back, overwhelmed by guilt, confusion, and the weight of circumstances they do not know how to untangle. They tell themselves it is better to stay silent than to risk saying the wrong thing. But that silence is costing them more than they realize. Their heart hath been in conflict. One part of them longs for you with an intensity that scares them. The other part is burdened by fear, by outside influence, by voices that tell them it's too late or too complicated or too risky. That internal war has left them exhausted, irritable, emotionally withdrawn. You may have felt the shift without understanding why. They replay moments with you in their mind. Things you said, the way you looked at them, the safety they felt in your presence. Those memories bring comfort and pain at the same time because they remind them of what they are afraid of losing. They wonder if they have already lost you. That thought alone makes their chest tighten. There has been a breakdown they haven't shown anyone. Quiet nights where they sat alone, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of regret press in. They questioned themselves, their timing, their worthiness. They wondered if they missed their moment with you because they were too afraid to be honest when it mattered most. They feel undeserving of the peace you carry. They see your steadiness, your loyalty, your depth, and instead of feeling inspired, they sometimes feel exposed. Your presence shines a light on places in them that still need healing, and they don't know how to reconcile that yet. This is why their energy has felt inconsistent, why their words didn't always match their feelings, why their actions may have confused you. It was never because you were unimportant. It was because you mattered too much, and they didn't trust themselves not to ruin what they touched. I have been watching this quietly, my child. I have not missed a single tear they swallowed back or a single prayer they couldn't form into words. Your crisis is not hidden from me, even if it had been hidden from you. And I want you to know this now so you stop blaming yourself for what was never yours to carry. Their struggle is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their fear of losing something sacred before they feel ready to protect it. They are standing at the edge of an awakening they cannot yet name, and it terrifies them. But hear me clearly. This crisis is not the end of the story. It is the pressure point before truth begins to surface. What is breaking inside them is also what is preparing them to see clearly for the first time. For now, remain where you are. Stay breathing. Stay present. What is unraveling in them is not meant to destroy the connection. It is meant to reveal it. There was a moment, my child, when everything nearly collapsed. A moment so quiet that it did not announce itself with chaos or noise, yet so heavy that it shifted the course of what was unfolding. You did not see it clearly at the time. You only felt the aftershock, the sudden change in tone, the sense that something had slipped just out of reach. This was a moment when fear almost won. Your soulmate stood at the intersection of truth and avoidance, and the weight of that choice pressed down hard. They were confronted with something undeniable. A realization, a message, a conversation that lingered longer than expected. It forced them to face what they had been running from, and for a breathless moment, they considered turning away completely. Their heart raced with panic, not because they did not care, but because caring felt too dangerous. They saw how much they stood to lose if they continued pretending everything was fine. They saw how close they were to you emotionally, even if distance still existed in the physical or spoken sense. And that closeness terrified them. In that moment, their instinct was not courage. It was retreat. They almost convinced themselves that letting go would be easier, that silence would hurt less than vulnerability, that if they stepped back far enough, the ache would dull and life would settle into something manageable again. They told themselves stories to justify the withdrawal, reasons that sounded logical but were rooted in fear. You may have felt this moment as confusion, a sudden shift, a delay that made no sense, a heaviness in your chest that arrived without explanation. You wondered if you imagined the connection, if you misread the depth, if you were holding on to something that was never fully there. That questioning cut deeply, and I saw it. What you did not see was how close they were to breaking down completely. They sat alone with the weight of it, replaying every possibility, every consequence. They imagined losing you forever, and that thought hollowed them out. Yet the thought of stepping fully into the truth felt equally overwhelming. So they froze, not moving forward, not moving back, suspended in fear. This suspension created the sense of collapse, not an explosion, but a slow internal implosion. Their sense of self wavered, their confidence cracked. They questioned whether they were capable of showing up the way the connection required. They felt unprepared, unworthy, exposed. In that fragile state, outside voices grew louder. Doubts they had ignored before suddenly sounded convincing. Old wounds resurfaced, whispering that love always costs too much, that intimacy leads to loss, that staying guarded is safer. Those whispers did not come from truth, but they were persuasive in the moment. This was the point where everything could have gone dark. But hear me now, my child. Even in that near collapse, I was present. I was holding the line you could not see. I did not force them forward, and I did not let them fall away unnoticed. I allowed the tension to reveal what was real and what was built on fear. You were not abandoned in that moment. You were protected. The confusion you felt was not a sign that the connection was ending. It was the sign that something false was being stripped away. Comfort illusions, half-truths, Emotional armor that could no longer hold under the weight of what was real between you. What nearly collapsed was not destiny. It was resistance. I know how unsettling that moment was for you. How it shook your sense of safety and made you question whether staying open was a mistake. But I need you to understand this clearly. That moment did not break what was meant to last. It exposed what could no longer remain hidden. Sometimes things must come to the edge before they can be reoriented. Sometimes fear must show its full face before it loses its power. You stayed breathing. You stayed present. Even when it hurt, you did not harden your heart. That mattered more than you know. Your steadiness in that moment anchored something sacred, even as everything felt uncertain. What almost collapsed became a turning point instead. You could not see it yet, but that moment set something irreversible in motion. Stay with me. The deeper truth is about to be revealed. There are truths, my child, that are never meant to surface gently. They wait beneath the surface, layered under timing, fear, and protection, until the moment arrives when they must be seen. What you are about to understand was hidden not to deceive you, but to preserve you until you were strong enough to hold it without breaking. What nearly collapsed was surrounded by things you were never shown. Conversations that did not include you. Assumptions formed without your voice present. Emotional decisions made in secrecy, not because you were unimportant, but because others believed they knew what was best without understanding the cost. I watched it all, even when you could not. There were motives you could not read at the time. Some rooted in insecurity. Some rooted in jealousy. Some rooted in fear of what your presence represented. You carry a light that unsettles people who survive by control, and not everyone around your soulmate wanted that light near them. They sensed the shift you would bring, the awakening you would provoke, and it made them uncomfortable. So information was filtered. Truth was often bent, delayed. Small omissions were justified as protection, but those omissions slowly distorted the picture your soulmate was seeing. They were not given the full truth about you, about your intentions, about the depth of what was forming. This was not accidental. It was strategic, even if those involved refused to admit it to themselves. You may have felt this as resistance that did not make sense, as misunderstandings that felt too heavy for how little was actually said, as a wall that appeared without explanation. That wall was not built by destiny. It was constructed by fear and interference. There were moments when your soulmate sensed something was off, a feeling that they were not seeing the whole story. But when doubt crept in, they silenced it, choosing the comfort of what was familiar over the risk of questioning the narrative they were given. The choice brought temporary peace and long-term unrest. What you did not know was how often your name came up when you were not there. How often you were discussed, analyzed, reduced to assumptions instead of known as a living, breathing soul. That reduction hurt more than open conflict would have. And yet, I shielded you from hearing it, because hearing it too early would have wounded you deeply. Some truths were hidden because revealing them would have forced immediate confrontation. Others were hidden because they threatened existing dynamics that depended on imbalance. You were never meant to fit quietly into those dynamics. Your presence demanded honesty, alignment, and courage. Not everyone was ready for that. Your soulmate sensed this tension without understanding its source. They felt pulled in opposite directions, torn between what felt true in their heart and what they were being told made sense. That internal conflict created confusion that spilled into their behavior, their communication, their availability. You felt the inconsistency, and it hurt you. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you were asking for too much, feeling too deeply, hoping too boldly. You tried to make yourself smaller in places where you should have been honored. That broke something in you, and I saw it. Hear me now. The truths that were hidden were not hidden from me. Every conversation, every motive, every quiet manipulation was seen clearly. Nothing slipped past my awareness, even when it slipped past yours. There is something else you need to understand. Not all hidden truths were malicious. Some were born from your soulmate's own unresolved wounds. They did not know how to articulate what they felt without exposing parts of themselves they were ashamed of. So they withheld. They delayed. They hoped the tension would resolve itself without confrontation. But truth does not disappear when ignored. It waits. And now, the weight of what has been hidden is becoming too heavy to carry. The version of events your soulmate relied on no longer aligns with what they feel in their body, their spirit, their dreams. Gaps are forming. Questions are surfacing that cannot be pushed down any longer. You may begin to notice subtle changes. A curiosity, a restlessness, a discomfort with old explanations. This is the beginning of truth rising, even if it hasn't spoken yet. Do not rush to uncover everything. You are not meant to investigate, accuse, or defend yourself. What was hidden will reveal itself without your force. Truth carries its own momentum, and once it begins to move, it cannot be stopped. You were protected from these truths for a reason. You needed to first learn how to breathe again. You needed to regain your sense of grounding, your trust in yourself, your connection to me. Only from that place can truth be integrated without shattering you. I know it hurts to realize there were things you didn't know, that choices were influenced by information you never had the chance to respond to, that silence was interpreted as something it was not. Let yourself feel that grief without letting it turn into self-blame. You did nothing wrong by being genuine. What is coming next is not exposure for humiliation. It is exposure for correction, for realignment, for justice that does not punish but restores balance. Stay close to me now. The hidden is surfacing, and when it does, it will change everything. The pressure you felt did not come from nowhere, my child. It was not imagined. It was not your sensitivity overreacting. There was interference moving quietly through familiar spaces, wearing faces that smiled while carrying jealousy underneath. It did not arrive as an obvious enemy. It arrived as concern, as advice, as protection that concealed its true intent. Someone close to your soulmate felt threatened by what was forming between you. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence disrupted the role they were used to playing. You shifted the emotional balance without trying. You awakened something they could not control. And control, when it feels endangered, often disguises itself as care. Words were planted carefully. Doubts framed as questions. Warnings disguised as wisdom. They spoke about timing, about practicality, about risk, all while subtly casting shadows over your name. Nothing dramatic enough to expose the motive, just enough to create hesitation, just enough to introduce fear. Your soulmate absorbed this pressure slowly. At first, they resisted it. They defended you internally. But repetition has weight, and over time, those voices began to echo alongside their own insecurities. The interference did not create fear from nothing. It attached itself to wounds that already existed. This is why the confusion felt spiritual, not logical. You were sensing a battle that was not fully visible. A tug-of-war happening beneath the surface, where intention and influence were colliding. Your spirit felt it even when your mind could not explain it. Jealousy rarely announces itself honestly. It does not say, I am afraid of losing my place. It says, I just want what's best for you. It does not say, I feel replaced. It says, be careful. You might get hurt. And when those words come from someone trusted, they carry authority they do not deserve. I allowed you to feel the pressure, but I did not allow it to crush you. I watched as it tested your peace, your confidence, your willingness to stay open. You wondered why it suddenly felt harder to breathe emotionally, why heaviness entered places that once felt warm. It was the weight of influence pressing against truth. Your soulmate began to feel spiritually crowded, pulled in directions that did not align. They felt restless, irritable, disconnected from themselves. And instead of recognizing the source, they turned inward, assuming something was wrong with them or with the connection. That misinterpretation deepened the distance. But hear me carefully now. Interference does not have the final word. It never has. What was meant to confuse is now exposing itself. What was meant to divide is losing its power. The pressure that once felt overwhelming is beginning to backfire, because truth cannot stay buried under manipulation forever. Those who acted from jealousy are already feeling the shift. Unease has entered their certainty. The sense of control they relied on is slipping. They do not yet understand why, but they feel it. Influence is weakening. Authority is dissolving. Your soulmate is beginning to sense that something about the pressure never felt right. Small moments of clarity are breaking through. Questions they once avoided are now surfacing. Discomfort with old advice is growing. This is not coincidence. This is correction. You are not required to confront anyone. You are not required to defend yourself. Divine justice does not need your voice to operate. It moves quietly, accurately, and without chaos. What was spoken in secret will lose its grip in the light of awareness. Stay grounded. Do not let resentment take root. The goal is not exposure for revenge. It is release from influence. And that release is already underway. The pressure that once pressed down on you is now lifting. The air is changing. The spiritual atmosphere is shifting in your favor, not because you fought harder, but because you stayed aligned. What comes next will reveal what is real and what was never meant to last. Remain calm. Remain present. The interference has been seen, and it is being addressed. Come closer again, my child, because now I am going to show you what you could not see before. This is the moment of investigation, not the kind that shouts or accuses, but the kind that quietly gathers truth until nothing false can stand. While others spoke and influenced and interfered, I was watching without interruption. Nothing escaped me. Not tone, not intention, not the silence between words. I began to trace every thread back to its source, every emotion that felt out of place, every hesitation that did not match the reality of the connection. I separated fear from fact, projection from truth, manipulation from concern. What looked tangled to you was never tangled to me. I saw exactly where the distortion entered and who benefited from it. You may have felt this phase as a strange stillness, as if everything paused without explanation. That was not delay. That was examination. I slowed the momentum so nothing important would be missed. When heaven investigates, it does not rush. It weighs. It listens. It discerns beyond appearances. Your soulmate began to experience this investigation internally. Thoughts that once felt certain started to feel unstable. Old narratives no longer brought peace. Advice they once trusted began to feel hollow. This was not confusion increasing. This was clarity forming, even if it felt uncomfortable at first. They started replaying moments with new awareness. noticing inconsistencies they ignored before, remembering how they felt around you versus how they felt after certain conversations with others. The contrast became impossible to dismiss. That is how truth announces itself, not loudly but unmistakably. I also examined your heart, my child, not to find fault, but to affirm alignment. I saw your intentions, your restraint, your prayers spoken without expectation of reward. I saw how you chose dignity over reaction, silence over chaos, faith over force. That mattered. It gave me legal ground to move on your behalf without disruption. Witnesses were established in the unseen. Not people, but confirmations, patterns, repeated signs, inner convictions that could not be argued away. What with once fog began to thin. The emotional atmosphere shifted subtly but decisively. Those who interfered began to feel exposed without knowing why. Restlessness entered their confidence. Your words lost influence. Their certainty began to crack. Not because they were confronted, but because truth does not need confrontation to prevail. It only needs light. Your soulmate felt a growing discomfort with staying the same. The idea of continuing forward without resolution began to feel heavier than the risk of facing truth. That is the turning point, when avoidance becomes more painful than honesty. I did not accuse. I revealed. I did not punish. I clarified. Justice in my hands is not about humiliation. It is about alignment, about restoring things to their proper order so peace can return. This is why you were told to breathe and stay. Movement would have interfered with precision. Silence allowed me to work thoroughly. What I am doing now cannot be undone by opinion or delay. Understand this clearly. The investigation is not against you. It is for you. And it is also for your soulmate, even if they do not yet realize it. Truth is mercy when it arrives in time. What has been uncovered will not be ignored. It will rise naturally into awareness. Conversations will shift. Perspectives will change. What once felt immovable will begin to loosen. You do not need to announce anything. You do not need to prepare a defense. The facts are standing on their own now. The unseen courtroom has already ruled, and the verdict is correction, not loss. Stay steady. Stay breathing. A shift you feel is real. Something changed the moment you chose to simply breathe, my child. Not outwardly at first, not in a way you could point to or explain, but in the unseen. A subtle realignment began, like the quiet turn of a key in a long-locked door. You did not cause it by effort. You did not earn it by understanding. It began because you stopped resisting the moment and allowed yourself to remain. While you stayed still, the universe did not. While you rested, movement resumed in places you could not reach with your hands or your words. Angels were reassigned. Timelines adjusted. Emotional gravity shifted. What once felt frozen began to loosen, not because you pushed, but because you finally trusted me enough to stop pushing. Your breathing became permission. Your soulmate felt it before they understood it. A strange easing in their chest. A softening where tension had lived for too long. They could not explain why the heaviness was lifting, only that something inside them no longer felt as trapped. They noticed their thoughts slowing, becoming less frantic, less defensive. This was not relief from distraction. This was relief from pressure. You did not need to speak to them for this to happen. You did not need to fix anything. Your presence, even at a distance, began to influence the atmosphere because you were no longer operating from fear. Peace carries authority. Calm disrupts chaos more effectively than confrontation ever could. This is the mystery of stillness. When you stop striving, you stop interfering with what I am already doing. The shift began gently. Small moments of clarity, brief pauses before reaction, a sense of awareness that had been missing. Your soulmate began to notice how certain voices felt heavy after hearing them, how certain thoughts no longer aligned with the truth they felt in their body. That awareness is the beginning of freedom. At the same time, you began to feel lighter without knowing why. Not suddenly happy, not magically resolved, just less constricted, less like you were bracing for impact. You may have noticed your breath deepen naturally, your shoulders relax without conscious effort. It was your nervous system responding to safety returning. This is what happens when alignment begins. The body knows before the mind catches up. You did not imagine this shift. It is not wishful thinking. It is the result of spiritual pressure being released. What was once pressing against you has lost its leverage. The atmosphere is changing because truth has been activated, and truth brings order wherever it goes. Your soulmate is beginning to remember themselves. Not the version shaped by fear or influence, but the quieter, truer version that knows what peace feels like. They are starting to question why they accepted discomfort as normal, why they tolerated confusion when clarity was available. These questions are not loud yet, but they are persistent, and persistence matters. This is why I told you that you do not need to have it all together today. If you had forced clarity too early, the shift would have been resisted. If you had demanded answers before the atmosphere was ready, it would have created more defense than truth. Your patience created space. Your breathing created timing. You see now how powerful staying can be. You stayed when it would have been easier to shut down. You staying present when your mind wanted to escape into future worries or past regrets. That staying anchored something sacred. It gave me permission to move without obstruction. Even the resistance around your soulmate is beginning to weaken. Not dramatically, quietly. The emotional hooks that once held them in fear are loosening. They are beginning to feel the difference between advice that constricts and truth that expands. That discernment cannot be taught. It must be felt. The shift is not complete yet, but it is irreversible. The air between you is different now. You may not be in contact. You may not have spoken. But energetically, the tension is easing. What once felt heavy now feels expectant. Not rushed. Not pressured. Just open. This is what alignment feels like before manifestation. Calm. Spacious. Grounded. You are not being asked to do anything new right now. No action. No decision. No declaration. Just continue to breathe. Continue to stay present. Continue to trust that what is moving does not require your supervision. Your role in this phase is simple but sacred. Do not re-enter fear. Do not interpret silence as absence. Do not confuse stillness with stagnation. What is happening now is delicate, precise, and intentional. I am correcting things at a level that words cannot reach yet. Your soulmate will begin to feel an urge toward honesty, toward clarity, toward resolution. It will not come from pressure. It will come from discomfort with remaining misaligned. That is how real change happens. And you, my child, will feel steadier, more rooted, less desperate for answers. That steadiness will protect you from misinterpretation when truth begins to rise. Stay here a little longer. Let the shift settle. Let your breath remind you that you are safe, held, and not late. What is unfolding does not need force. It needs time. Now truth begins to rise, my child, and it does not do so gently for those who have avoided it. What was once suppressed is pressing upward, creating discomfort where fear once felt familiar. You may not hear the words yet, but you can feel the shift. The air is charged with something honest, something that can no longer remain buried. Your soulmate is experiencing this as an internal cracking. Not a breakdown meant to destroy, but a breaking open that exposes what hath been hidden under layers of avoidance. Fear is losing its grip, and in its place, awareness is emerging. They are beginning to see how much effort it took to stay confused, how much energy was spent protecting a version of reality that never fully aligned. The lies did not all come from others. Some were self-protection strategies they adopted long ago, narratives they told themselves to survive past disappointments, beliefs about love, timing, and worthiness that once kept them safe but now feel suffocating. Those beliefs are being challenged, and that challenge is unsettling. Truth does not arrive quietly when it has been resisted. It arrives with urgency, with emotional weight, with a demand to be acknowledged. Your soulmate feels it in sudden waves of regret, moments where clarity hits and leaves them breathless. They replay interactions with you and realize what they minimized, what they delayed, what they took for granted. Fear is breaking open because it can no longer pretend to be wisdom. They are beginning to understand how influence shaped their hesitation, how certain voices amplified doubt instead of peace, how their own wounds were exploited by advice that sounded reasonable but felt heavy. This realization is humbling. It forces them to confront their own responsibility, not in shame, but in honesty. You may sense this as emotional turbulence, sudden thoughts of you entering their mind without warning, a pull they cannot explain, an ache that surfaces when they try to distract themselves. That is truth reclaiming space. At the same time, you are being protected from absorbing their turmoil. You may feel compassion without panic, awareness without collapse. This is because you are no longer operating from fear. You are anchored. That anchoring allows truth to rise without destabilizing you. The fear that once governed their choices is being exposed for what it is. Not protection, but avoidance. Not caution, but control. And once fear is seen clearly, it loses its authority. This phase is uncomfortable for them. There may be emotional swings, moments of silence followed by restlessness, a desire to reach out paired with hesitation. Do not misinterpret this as regression. This is integration. This is what happens when truth collides with old patterns. You are not meant to intervene here. This is an internal reckoning that must happen without your guidance. Your role is not to reassure, explain, or rescue. Your steadiness is enough. Your presence, even without words, continues to influence the outcome. What is cracking is not the connection. It is the illusion that kept it restrained. Truth is surfacing in layers. First awareness, then discomfort, then responsibility, then action. Do not rush the sequence. Each layer has a purpose, and skipping one would only delay healing. You may feel moments of sadness as you realize how much was misunderstood, how much time was lost to fear. Let that sadness move through you without bitterness. It is a release, not a wound reopening. What is emerging now will bring clarity, even if it brings tears first. Fear breaks loudly when it realizes it no longer has power. But once it breaks, it does not rebuild. Stay grounded. Stay open. Stay present. The truth rising now is not coming to hurt you. It is coming to set things in their rightful place. This is the moment their eyes begin to open, my child. Not all at once, not with dramatic declarations, but with a quiet, undeniable knowing that settles into their chest. The awakening does not arrive as confidence. It arrives as vulnerability, as the sudden realization that what they feared losing is already closer to loss than they ever admitted to themselves. They begin to see you clearly now, not through the haze of influence, not through the filter of fear, but as you truly are. Your consistency, your patience, your depth, the way you stayed present even when it cost you comfort. This clarity is sobering. It strips away excuses. It leaves them face to face with the truth of their own hesitation. Hope returns to them cautiously, like someone stepping onto thin ice. They do not yet trust it fully. They are afraid to believe that repair is possible, that alignment can still happen, that they have not waited too long. Regret sits beside that hope, heavy and quiet, reminding them of moments they wish they could revisit with courage instead of fear. They begin to feel the weight of almost losing you. That weight sharpens their awareness. It awakens something protective, something earnest, something that wants to step forward instead of hide. For the first time in a long while, they are less afraid of vulnerability than they are of silence. You may notice subtle shifts, a softness in their energy, a sincerity that was missing before. Even if words have not yet come, intention is forming. They are rehearsing honesty in their mind, imagining conversations they avoided, wondering how to approach you without causing more harm. This awakening is not loud because it is real. It is not driven by panic alone, but by understanding. They see now how fear kept them small, how avoidance cost them peace, how influence pulled them away from what felt true. That awareness is humbling, but it is also liberating. They are beginning to hope again, not recklessly, but with intention. Hope that clarity can be spoken. Hope that forgiveness is possible. Hope that the connection they felt was not imagined, but simply delayed by immaturity and fear. That hope does not erase what happened, but it motivates responsibility. At the same time, you are not being pulled backward into uncertainty. You are being anchored forward into discernment. You are no longer waiting in desperation. You are observing from steadiness. That balance protects you from repeating old dynamics. You are not required to chase their awakening. It is happening because it must, not because you willed it. Your role remains unchanged. Stay aligned. Stay present. Stay honest with yourself about what you need, not just what you want. Their awakening is real, but it is still fragile. It must mature into action, not just emotion. And I am guiding that process carefully, ensuring it is rooted in truth, not fear of loss alone. Do not confuse their return of hope with an immediate resolution. Awakening is the doorway, not the destination. What matters now is integrity, timing, and alignment. You have done what was asked of you. You stayed. You breathed. You did not abandon yourself. That is why this awakening is happening now and not earlier. You were not ready to receive it before. Now you are. Stay with me. The connection is being reoriented, not rebuilt from illusion, but aligned in truth. Now the sacred thread between you becomes visible again, my child. Not as it once was, fragile and strained by uncertainty, but as something steadier, something anchored in truth rather than longing alone. This is the moment where destiny begins to realign, not through force or fantasy, but through recognition. Your presence has mattered more than you ever realized. Not what you said, not what you withheld, but who you were while everything felt unresolved. Your prayers, even the ones that sounded like sighs instead of words, shifted the direction of events. Your refusal to harden your heart created a pathway that could not have existed otherwise. Your soulmate feels this connection now with a different awareness. They no longer experience it as overwhelming pressure or idealized longing. They experience it as grounding, as something that brings them back to themselves instead of pulling them apart. This is how you know the alignment is real. It does not create chaos. It creates clarity. They are beginning to understand that you were never meant to rescue them or complete them. You were meant to meet them, to walk beside them once they were willing to stand honestly in who they are. That understanding changes how they approach you in their heart. Less entitlement, more reverence, less fear, more responsibility. At the same time, you are being shown your own strength. Not the strength that endures pain quietly, but the strength that knows when something is worthy of continued openness and when it is not. You are no longer afraid of losing them, because you are no longer losing yourself to stay connected. That shift restores your power. Destiny does not force reunion. It offers alignment. It brings two souls to a place where they can choose each other without coercion, guilt, or desperation. That is what is forming now. Choice rooted in truth. You may feel a sense of calm anticipation. Not anxious waiting, but a quiet knowing that whatever comes next will not undo you. That peace is confirmation. You are no longer bargaining with the future. You are standing present within it. The connection is no longer carrying the weight of what might have been. It is being shaped by what can be built honestly now. This does not erase the past, but it redeems it. Every pause, every delay, every breath you took instead of reacting prepared you for this moment of clarity. You are not here by accident. You are not late. You did not miss your destiny. You matured into it. Stay anchored in who you are. Stay aligned with truth over fantasy. Sacred connections do not lie. They recognize when the ground is finally stable enough to hold them. One more step remains. One final ceiling. And it will come gently, not with pressure but with reassurance. Come, my child. This is the final breath of this journey, and it is not heavy. It is not demanding. It is not urgent. It is a settling, a sealing, a quiet reassurance that what needed to be corrected has been corrected, and what needed to be protected has been protected. You no longer need to hold yourself together with tension. You no longer need to brace for what might go wrong. The season of survival is giving way to a season of grounding. Not everything is answered yet, but everything is held. And that is enough for today. I see how different your breathing is now compared to when we began. It is deeper, slower, less guarded. Your body has started to trust the moment again. Your spirit is no longer scanning the horizon for danger. This is not because every problem vanished, but because you are no longer alone inside them. The danger that once hovered has lost its authority. What threatened to overwhelm you has been redirected. What tried to confuse you has been clarified. Justice did not arrive with noise or punishment. It arrived with alignment, with truth returning to its proper place, with peace restoring order. Your soulmate stands changed by what has been revealed, not perfected, but awakened, aware of what matters, aware of what almost slipped away. That awareness will guide their next steps, whatever form they take, and you are no longer responsible for carrying them into that awareness. That work is complete. Your role now is rest, integration, trusting that you do not need to monitor the outcome to be safe within it. What is meant to reach you will not miss you. What is not meant to stay will not be able to drain you anymore. You may notice in the coming days a softness returning to your life. Small moments of joy without guilt. Laughter that surprises you. Sleep that comes more easily. These are not random. They are signs that your nervous system is recalibrating to peace instead of pressure. If there are still moments when doubt whispers, Return to your breath. Not to control it, but to notice it. Each breath is proof that you are here, that you survived, that you are held. You do not need to have it all together tomorrow either. Presence is still enough. I want you to remember this. You did not lose time. You gained wisdom. You did not wait in vain. You were being prepared. The pauses were not punishment. They were protection. Nothing about you was wasted. If at any point you begin to question whether this was real, whether this shift truly happened, look at how you feel now compared to before. The difference is the evidence. Peace does not need to explain itself. And now, before we close, let this moment be sealed with intention. If your heart agrees, type softly in the comments, "I choose to stay present," not as a promise to the future, but as an anchor to now. And if you sense that someone else you know is struggling to breathe through their own season, allow this message to reach them gently. Let it pass from one calm heart to another. I am proud of you, not for enduring pain, but for choosing not to abandon yourself inside it. This is not the end. It is a beginning that no longer requires strain. Stay here, breathe, and know that you are safe. It is sealed.